Today we're going to learn how to add post-processing to UI elements by using camera stacking and a custom render feature. The goal is to have post-processing affect the UI, but not the camera under the UI. This is an issue that people have been struggling with for years. And I didn't really have this problem until recently, so I didn't really know that this was a problem until now. But now this is easier thanks to Unity 6 and URP updates, which enable an alpha preservation feature and a context container. However, making use of this feature is still technically challenging, and so I thought I'd make this tutorial to make our lives easier. Also, I am not a computer graphics guy. Up until recently, I never really had a need to deal with render features or complicated custom shaders. So, fair warning, I'm still learning a lot, and everything that you learn today may be completely false, but hopefully still useful. So why wasn't this possible before? Let's go through an example. When we have a camera, we can add post-processing effects. We can toggle them on or off. When I enable the canvas element and then toggle post-processing on, you'll see it affects everything. The thing is that there are sometimes specific use cases where we want to add post-processing only to the UI and not the rest of the scene. You might say, hey, if post-processing affects a camera, why don't you just have a separate camera and use that camera to display the overlay and then apply the post-processing effects to that camera? And then it won't affect the base camera, right? That's a great idea. That's what I thought too. And that's what brought me to this problem. But let's give it a shot anyways. In this scene, I have my canvas in world space, and I have my second camera set as an overlay camera. Post-processing is toggled off of my main camera and also toggled off of my overlay camera. For extra measures, let's make sure that the only thing the overlay camera is allowed to render is the UI. So, let's set the culling mask to UI. In theory, we should be able to affect post-processing on what this camera renders only, right? It's not working. And to make matters worse, if I toggle post-processing on my main camera, the bloom effect is doubled. The reason this is happening is because overlaid cameras with post-processing, that post-processing affects every camera under the stack. In other words, the effects of the topmost camera trickle down all the way down to the base camera. And even if we try to render that camera's output into a rendered texture and apply post-processing there, the issue is that in older versions of Unity, when you apply post-processing, it would set alpha equal to 1, essentially ignoring transparency. Okay, so I was having this problem and I was like, wait, why isn't this working? So while I was trying to figure it out, I started searching online and then I found this huge mega thread. A super mega thread that's been around since like 2020 with people struggling with the same thing that I was. But it's thanks to this thread that I found out that Unity had come up with a solution. But I still kind of struggled to figure out how to implement the solution. That is until I found this post. A Unity staff member provided a shader and a custom render feature script that made it all start to click. So Aljosha, thank you so much for helping us noobs. You are amazing. But before we implement these scripts, it's important to understand why we need them. Let's take a look at how Unity renders objects in our scene. So a cool feature that we can use is the render graph viewer. And we can access it by going into Window, Analysis, and then Render Graph Viewer. This shows us how Unity renders to the game view. The top part shows us the render passes in the order of execution, where the first pass occurs on the left and the last one occurs on the right. As you can see, post-processing effects are done at the very end. That makes sense, right? First, we need Unity to draw the depth map, get us a sexy ambient occlusion, render the colors of our meshes, draw the skybox, then draw transparent meshes that won't look transparent unless there's stuff behind them first, then draw the UI elements that are overlay, calculate bloom, and then put it all together. The problem becomes obvious because overlay stuff happens at the end. The post-processing not only affects the overlay, but everything that came before it. What if we could isolate the overlay camera, apply post-processing, and then combine that render with the base camera render? Wouldn't that be amazing? So we can do that, and the way it's done is with render features. These are a type of script that allows us to inject a custom render pass into the rendering pipeline. Remember the render passes that we saw in the render graph viewer? A render feature can inject a pass anywhere here. The way Aljosha's render feature works is by taking a snapshot of the base camera's render before we draw the UI. We store this snapshot temporarily and put it aside. Then we create a transparent background, and on top of this, we continue rendering according to the rendering order, which means we draw the next element on the screen. which include the UI, and then at the very end, we apply post-processing. Now we can take the snapshot that we stored, bring it back, and blend it with now the post-processed overlay. So let's set this up. I created a new scene with a simple heads-up display with different materials so that we can see how blending modes change the output. Let's turn on post-processing in our HUD camera, and to be safe, let's set the camera to capture HUD elements only via the culling mask dropdown. Notice how the post-processing is affecting both our UI and the 3D models behind it. Let's drag and drop the two scripts Aljosha provided into the settings folder in Assets. Remember how I said that it would be nice if we could isolate our overlay camera? The way to do this is by creating a new renderer and have the overlay camera use this renderer. We do this by right-clicking, Create, and clicking on URP Universal Renderer. Name it Overlay Renderer. Now in this renderer, click on the Add Renderer feature and you'll see the Layer Render feature in the drop-down list. This is one of the scripts we dragged into our Assets folder. We can set the storage event to occur before rendering and the pop event to occur after post-processing. For us to be able to combine the post-processed overlay with the background, we need to blend them with a shader. So let's create a material. We can call the material Push Pop Blend Material. Assign the shader we downloaded and drag it into the material input of this render feature. In order for this script to work, we need to enable alpha processing. And if we're going to be using HDR in this project, we have to set the HDR precision to 64 bits. But if we're not, because we're deploying to mobile or VR to improve performance, then we should uncheck HDR. For this example, I'm going to stick to HDR, keep it at 64 bits, and then what we have to do is go into post-processing and check the alpha processing checkbox. Now that we've completed these steps, all we have to do is ensure that our overlay camera is using the overlay renderer we created. So let's go to the overlay camera, and in the renderer, select the overlay renderer. Oh wait, it's not there. That's because we need to make sure that Unity knows it's part of our pipeline. So we have to go back to the renderer asset and add the overlay renderer to our renderer list. Now we can go back to our overlay camera and set the renderer to overlay renderer. It works. I can see the chromatic aberration here and it's not affecting the layers behind the UI. If I change the bloom, it's also working. Well, it kind of works. It's a little underwhelming, and we'll talk about a way to make the bloom pop a little bit more later. So if we go back to the render graph viewer, you'll notice that there's a new item in the render pipeline when we look at the graph for the HUD camera. If we disable this render feature and refresh, you'll notice how the blend layer pass is no longer there. And if we re-enable it and refresh, you'll notice it's now part of the processing pipeline for a render. Okay, now that we have this working, for those of you that want a better grasp for the how and the why, this next part of the tutorial is a little bit more technical. We're going to dig into these scripts and modify them so that we can make the glow effect pop, but also learn about render features in the process. Let's make a duplicate of the render feature and call it Push Pop Layer Render Feature. Let's open it up and see what this looks like. Okay, this looks like a lot. So let's minimize these methods to understand them one by one. At the top, we define the injection points for the two render passes. These are the ones that show up as drop-downs in the inspector. The push pass stores the camera view before the UI elements are drawn. This is where we get our snapshot. This is the storage event. The pop pass blends the post-process UI elements with the snapshot. This is our blending event. We have a material slot for the shader that blends the UI overlay with a stored snapshot. The class stack layers, think of this as our storage container. Here we will store the snapshot of the game view before the UI elements are drawn. The class push layer render pass describes the render pass. In this class, this is where we create the snapshot and add it to the storage container. The pop layer render pass describes the render pass where we take the storage snapshot and blend it with the post-processed overlay. In order for these render passes to be run by Unity, we need to declare them and then create them and then add them to the render queue at the injection points we chose from the dropdown. So I prepared a simplified render feature script. I removed a few things that were in Aljosha script, mostly a frame buffer fetch operation, which is probably very important, but I don't know enough to be able to explain it properly. And so we're going to skip that. Hopefully what we have now is going to be digestible and easier to understand. So what's happening in the push step? We're using a special feature in Unity called the render graph, which helps Unity optimize how it draws things on the screen. The record render graph function is where we tell Unity what we want to do in this specific drawing stage. Any render pass operation we want to perform should occur inside this. But first, we need to grab some important information about what's currently being drawn, things like the main image the camera is creating. And this information is stored in something called the Universal Resource Data object. And the thing that we care about that is provided here is the Resource Data camera color. Think of this as the current canvas that Unity is painting on. This is what URP sees as the current render target. But first, we need to create our temporary storage container. And this is where we store the snapshot of the base camera's drawing. This creates the storage container, and this pushes it into the container. This is not a copy, it's just a reference, and I believe it doesn't allocate new memory. Okay, so now that we've safely stored our snapshot, it's time to create a new blank canvas for Unity to draw on. This new canvas becomes our new render target. And this canvas is a texture, and we can find its settings, like its base color. Notice how the alpha value here is set to 0. This enables us to play with alpha more flexibly, and it's why we checked the alpha processing checkbox earlier. We can give this render target a new name, so let's call it new render target. And the create texture method actually does the creation of the texture. And I believe this method does allocate new memory. And finally, the last thing we need to do is assign this new texture we created to what URP internally interprets as the canvas it needs to draw on. And we do that over here. So from this moment forward, anything that Unity draws will be drawn onto this fresh new canvas we called new render target. So what happens in the pop step? This is where we bring everything together and blend our stored snapshot with a new drawing that Unity has been working on. To do this, we need a material with a shader, and the shader performs the blending. The shader that Aljosha provided has an if statement for blending the frame buffer, for the frame buffer fetch operation. So we want to make sure we disable it, since in this simplified example, we're not doing that. In the pop pass constructor, which can be seen as the init in a Python class, we set up a new profiling sampler. This is mostly optional, but it's probably good practice. And over here, we can set the pass name. So let's call this pop blend snapshot. This will make it easier for us to identify in the render graph viewer. And again, we see a record render graph function. Just like before, we need to retrieve the render target information, which up to this point has been the new canvas we created in the push pass. We call the storage container so that we can retrieve our snapshot. And here in this pop operation is where we actually do the retrieval. In this section here, that's where we set up the blending. We give it the current canvas as a source and our snapshot as the destination, as well as our blend material to perform the blending. And in the add blit pass section is where we actually do the blending. You'll notice that we never really defined a pass name. We could replace this with a string, but internally, Unity knows that this is what we called our profiling sampler. And lastly, we have to tell URP that our new render target is a blended canvas by setting this resources data camera color to the previous layer. So that we can see the push pass in the render graph viewer more easily, let's create a blit pass that doesn't do anything. To do that, let's make sure that the push pass can receive a material for the blending. Then, inside the record render graph function, we can set up a blit pass. First, let's make sure that we only run this if we have a material, and then we can set up the blending operation. And to make sure that this doesn't do anything weird, we set the current render target as the source and the destination. And then next, we can add the blit pass to perform this operation. As I said before, this can just take a string, so we can just do that. Now let's add this modified render feature to our overlay renderer. Let's disable the previous one, and let's set the push to before rendering and the pop after post-processing, as well as setting the blend material. You'll notice nothing has changed. If we refresh the render graph, you'll notice how we now have the push all the way over here. This is where we take the snapshot, and then all the way over here, after the post-processing, is where we do the pop, where we blend. And if we go to the main camera, you'll notice how we don't have a push or a pop here. That's because we created a separate renderer for our overlay camera. So let's go back to the overlay camera. And actually, why don't we take a look at what the snapshot looks like? So let's go to Window, Analysis, Frame Debugger. Let's enable it. You'll notice two hierarchies here. The first one is for our base camera, and the second one is for our overlay camera. You'll notice that even though we set the push, the taking snapshot operation to do before rendering, in the frame debugger, the snapshot contains the information from the base camera. That's because both cameras render to the same render target. So after camera 1 renders, camera 2 starts to render. Okay, now that we know how all of this works, we can make further modifications like making the bloom on the overlay pop. And that's really easy to do. Right now, we're doing a perfect alpha blend, meaning that anything that is set transparent will disappear in favor of the destination texture. Let's modify the shader so it does additive blending instead. All we have to do is change the blend from source alpha 1 minus source alpha to blend source alpha 1. So this hasn't really changed anything. That's because we aren't done. If we go back to our render feature, the new canvas we created is using transparent white. We can actually set this to black with an alpha of 1. This means that the black will disappear because it has a value of 0, but it'll provide a backdrop for the glow to pop. So let's save. And voila, there's more pop. We can change it to make it more obvious. And we can just play around until we find something that we like. You might be thinking, wait, if we made alpha equal to 1, now does that mean we don't need to enable alpha processing? And the answer is that we don't. We can disable it. And you still get the same effects. But you might want to keep it on if you're going to be using render textures that are going to require both post-processing and transparency. You might also think, hey man, all my black materials disappeared. Well, there's an easy solution for that. Go back to the render feature. And instead of setting the snapshot to occur before rendering, set it to occur after rendering opaques. And voila! Unlit black materials are visible now. And we can verify all of this by going to the frame debugger, enabling it, and if we go over here, we'll see that take snapshot occurs here, and you'll see that one of our UI elements that's set to be an unlit black material is being drawn, because it's being rendered during the opaque pass. If the post-processing is annoying you in the scene view, all you have to do is go up here and disable post-processing. Now you can manage your scene without worrying about too much glow. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is set up post-processing on the base cam. This follows the same logic it would in previous versions of Unity. You create a separate volume profile. Let's call it main cam vol profile. You create a new volume object. Let's call it global volume main camera. We create a new layer and we call it main cam vol. We assign it, and then we go back to the main camera, make sure that the environment component has the volume trigger to include the main cam volume, but nothing else. And then we enable post-processing. So let's go back and ensure that we don't have bloom on. And then we can set other things. Oh, might be. We have to also assign it to the main camera profile. So now it's separate. And what we can do now is do things like color adjustments, only on the background. And voila, we're done. Okay, great. I hope that this was useful. As always, you can find the code on GitHub or on Coffee, whichever you prefer. If you're a hacker, GitHub. If you just want to a quick dirty download, then Coffee's probably the best for you. Thank you so much, Aljosha, for providing those scripts that were incredibly helpful and very insightful for me to understand how to leverage the alpha preservation feature, even though in the examples that I showed, it may not be necessary, but at least with the context container logic, render features make a lot more sense to me now. I also wanted to say, oh, and thanks to the Unity Asset Store and the creators of the Unity asset that I showed at the beginning, the Insane Asylum. I will also include a link to those below. And if you're interested in learning how to implement this in VR, it's a little bit more complicated. It's also not recommended to do camera stacking in VR, but it is possible. I'm still figuring out how to optimize it. But yeah, let me know if you're interested in that and I'll make another one. Anyways, peace and see you in the next one.